It's a bird! It's a plane! It's some idiot recording another video in his room. I find myself going back a lot and watching a lot of the cartoons I couldn't get enough of as a child. And if you haven't guessed it, today we're talking about one of the OG DC animated projects, Superman, the animated series. An iconic character and a part of an iconic period of DC screenwriting, one that I feel doesn't get talked about enough. Superman is, to put very bluntly, a character everyone knows. He's an icon of the DC universe, and one of the first characters that comes to mind when you start talking about the DC universe or the Justice League. I don't need to explain much more about the character. And this rendition of Superman is pretty much the caped Kryptonian in cartoon style. There's nothing wrong with that, not even in the slightest. But the fact of the matter is that the series doesn't really feel special. Yes, it's a good show and it treats its characters really well with very faithful adaptations. But where the Batman the animated series proved to be one of the greatest renditions of its characters to ever grace the screen, the Superman the animated series felt kind of par for the course. Superman isn't really that hard of a character to write. He's a symbol of hope and justice, one who inspires a feeling of safety in everyone who sees him. He's a good-hearted, good-natured man using his powers for the betterment of his fellow man. And like I said, this is a good rendition of Superman. He's a character who exudes goodness, someone who believes in justice, but he's a bit more kind-natured than a certain caped crusader, and prefers to try and reason with people rather than resort directly to violence. And the great adaptation of characters isn't necessarily limited to just Superman. You also get Lex Luthor, Darkseid, Lois Lane, and others. The storytelling is pretty good too, since this was the beginning of the overarching plot of the DC animated universe, incorporating Darkseid and Apocalypse into the world and setting up a story for a much larger conflict to come. There was a lot they had to do, and it wasn't always done perfectly, but it's good enough. It also does work introducing us to more characters, such as The Flash and Green Lantern. Sometimes, though, they abuse the fact that this was a kid's show to excuse certain story elements, like the fact that Darkseid could have dominated Superman at one point and just flat out chose to walk away. I know he has this plan of subjugating Superman, but that would have been an excellent opportunity to do so. There's also the sort of unconvincing ending to the Apocalypse arc where the forces of New Genesis come to Earth to defeat Darkseid. But again, this is the DCAU's very first attempt at trying to set up an expansive universe, and a breakaway from all the episodic storytelling it was used to. Therefore, I feel it deserves a bit of a pass. Also, it wasn't like they were focusing on telling incredibly refined, complex stories at the time. This was a kid's show, so keep that in mind. Still, that doesn't change the fact that this feels like the most underwhelming addition into the DC universe. Superman in a fight is far less exciting and thrilling than Batman in a fight, since Superman has powers and doesn't generally need to think about things tactically and fight in a tactical way. It results in a lot of fights where it's just Superman and a villain in a slug out. Now, that's not to say that Superman is dumb or isn't smart or anything of the like. In fact, this show gives him some very witty moments. It's just that the fights, due to the powers he naturally has, require a lot less tactical maneuvering for Superman to win them. Batman is often depicted as having to use his gear, martial arts, and strength to take down multiple opponents at a time, whereas Superman generally just has to pummel an opponent into submission in order to win. So that's like episodes where they add in Mr. Mistle's Spit Lick, where Superman actually has to do things intelligently and tactically, make the series a little bit more lively and entertaining. And while I say it is a solid entry in a good cartoon, it still falls flat a lot of the times. Like it needs an extra bit of gas in order to get it going. And this often comes from the large-scale storytelling, or the addition of another hero. And that is exemplified by the fact that this series shines its brightest during the world's finest arc, where they finally put Batman and Superman together. Batman comes to Metropolis as he's tracking the Joker in a massive amount of missing kryptonite. Over 3 episodes, Batman and Superman work together using their unique skills to take down the duo of the Joker and Lex Luthor. They portray the dynamic between the two really well, especially from how they start to how they finish as friends. They really nail how the two characters interact, with Bruce not having a whole lot of trust for Superman, and Clark not having a whole lot of affinity for the way Batman handles criminals. Then, over the next 3 episodes, they get more and more accustomed to each other, and eventually kind of work out a truce, resulting in them being one of the greatest superhero duos ever, all done in spectacular fashion, by the way. There was also the episode where Superman and the Flash race around the entire world for charity, and I actually really liked that one. Animation and overall storytelling left me with no complaints. results. It's a bit different from its predecessor. It clearly had more direction, and that clearly guides it through its episode layout with many story elements looping back around. Watching this really took me back to when I was a kid, in the sense that I remember a lot of the shows being really well animated like this. The animation was smooth and done with passion, and you don't see that a whole lot in a lot of these cartoons that are coming out now. On another note, the intro to this series did get stuck in my head after watching it. So how do I rate it? Well, I give Superman the Animated Series a good 7 out of 10. It feels really average at times. Lex Luthor, Superman, and Lois are all really compelling and engaging characters, but the rest of the features are largely uninteresting. Long-form story gives this direction where its predecessor did not have that, but fails to deliver the same kind of episodic content. Animation may be dated, but it's far superior to many forms of modern 2D cartoon animation nowadays, and its larger arcs are far more fun than the individual episodes, so it gets a passing grade based on the fact that it's a competent story and doesn't feel the need to butcher characters. Insert cringe relationship drama like a certain other Superman cartoon, and doesn't overall treat the audience like they're fucking stupid. I think that if this show had been a lot more fun than just Superman slugging his way to victory in most fights, I would have rated it much higher. But the fact is that this show and Superman as a character don't hold the same place in my heart as Batman or Batman the Animated Series. It's good, but it still doesn't compare. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit the magic buttons down below, like and subscribe, because I enjoy the sport. I appreciate you and the fact that you've given me your time, so thank you. Have a great day. Later.